With the end of the Major League Baseball season comes free agency, and it is time to get the work for the Milwaukee Brewers. Get to that next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I can't wait for the start of free agency, which is underway right now. There's a 5-day grace period, waiting period before players can sign on Monday. And you'll hear a lot of rumors and all that. And sometimes it takes a while for free agency to get on a little bit of a roll. As you know how it is. Things just fall into place. And there we go. The Brewers got some options, some decisions to make, which they probably already have internally. And players like Rhys Hoskins have got decisions to make as well. Good to have you along. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Congratulations. You did it, Los Angeles Dodgers. You did it. Your first full season World Series since 1988. Man, you finally did it. You finally bought yourself a World Series. 2020 doesn't count, but you finally did it. Boy, that was great. It took Shohei. You got Shohei. And you got all these guys together, and finally your all-star team did it. Man, just like what Major League Baseball wanted. You got your World Series championship. Cool. That is so awesome. And you might get Willy Adames, too. How about that? You're going to add Willy Adames to the mix. And you're going to get even better. Where's that payroll going to be then? 350? 400 million? Way to go, Dodgers. You finally broke that door down. Dave Roberts, Manager of the Year. Give me a break. All right, free agency starting. And again, teams have in 5 days. You can begin negotiating, but then you can't announce the signing until like 5 days, which I think is ridiculous. I don't get that. I totally don't get it. But here are some names right now. Free agency for the Milwaukee Brewers. Frankie Montas. He's as good as gone. Ain't no way the Brewers are even thinking about a $20 million option with Frankie Montas. No way. You're thinking of $20 million with Frankie Montas. I'd love to have back $10 million. I liked what he did here. I really did. But $20 million? Now, Frankie didn't do that much to get $20 million. Jack Flaherty, I'd give $20 million a year, but not Frankie Montas. Frankie is as good as gone. Now, the big one. I think this kind of, whether or not Rhys Hoskins opts in, is really the linchpin here. Because if he opts in, that's $18 million right there. And then there's the $4 million mutual option for next year on the buyout. But really, this is the key right here, because if Hoskins opts in, that's $18 million that you got to devote for him. Okay. Otherwise, if he walks, you're off the books there. You're looking for another first baseman, but you're freeing up a lot of money. But Hoskins tied up with $18 million. There's some days I'd loved it. I'd love to have him at $18 million. There's other days when he's been at the plate and it's just like miserable. But if he opts in for the $18 million, I'm not going to be totally upset at that, because I think there's more to Rhys than we saw this past season. You know, the 26 home runs. What do you have? 82 RBIs. He batted 207. A lot of RBIs for just a horrible batting average, and it seemed like he was playing on one leg, to be honest with you. But give him another year of fixing that knee that he had surgically repaired, and the groin injury, the hamstring injury that went along with it during the season here. But we'll see if he picks up that $18 million option. Everybody I talk to seems to think that he is going to pick up that $18 million option, and he's going to bet on himself that he's going to put it together next year and then maybe test free agency. Wade Miley, $12 million option, the mutual option there. Yeah, Brewers, ain't no way Brewers are spending $12 million on a 39-year-old pitcher coming off Tommy John. We like Wade Miley when he was here. It seemed like he pitched his best in a Brewers uniform, but Wade Miley's not coming back on this team. Devin Williams, of course, they'd be an absolute fool not to tender him the $10.5 million deal. $10.5 million club option. Of course, they're going to tender him that. Of course, they're going to do everything possible. And of course, which goes along with that is the fact that Matt Arnold is likely going to be trading him, or he's going to be trying to trade him in the offseason. Could be here in the first month, could be not till a couple of weeks before spring training like they did with Corbin Burns. But I think that Devin Williams is as good as gone. They're picking up the tender on that for sure. Colin Ray, God, I've heard mixed on that. $5.5 million club option. I would think that would be a nice price for Colin Ray. And again, he's 34 years old. But I think that would be not, I mean, considering what he's pitched so well here the last couple of years, I'm okay with that. Unless you did better at that spot. Colin Ray, I thought, did really well. Now, obviously they did not think enough of him to have him pitched in the first 3 games of the postseason to start any of those 3 postseason games. He was coming out of the bullpen. But $5.5 million club option. I've heard some people say they're going to do it. Other people saying, maybe not so much. We'll see. Freddie Peralta, $8 million club option. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolute steal. Freddie, who will hopefully be the number 2 guy in this rotation next year. Hopefully they get somebody on top, and then they slide Peralta the number 2. Another guy I'm on the fence with is Gary Sanchez. $4 million on the mutual option. Did a nice job backing up. Was asked everything that he could, anything that they wanted out of him, they got. In fact, they asked more out of him than I thought. They put him in the heart of the order out of necessity plenty of times. And he did a nice job as a backup catcher. He could throw guys out. I like Eric Haas. I really do, but Eric Haas can't throw anybody out on a base pass. I like to think Eric Haas will be better than one of 19 throwing guys out of the base pass. And that's what he literally was this past year. So mutual option, I think the Brewers will be in on that at $4 million. Remember when he first signed with the Brewers, it was going to be $7 million. Then he found a couple of things in the physical that they didn't like. So it ended up being $4 million that he signed. I believe it was like right around $4 million, but he's got the $4 million option for next year. Free agents, guys as good as gone. Willy Adames, of course. They're going to throw out the $20 million tender to him so they can get the draft pick on that, but he is not coming back for sure. Joe Ross was here for 1 year, did a nice job for what we expected Ross to do. Come in, get a few outs, make a few key starts, but Joe Ross will end up with another team next year. So there you go. Frankie Montas, gone. Hoskins, I think, is in. Miley, gone. Devin Williams, club tender, yes. Ray, I'd like to have him back. Club may not have him back. Peralta, $8 million club option, no-brainer. Sanchez, I'd take him back. We'll see there in the mutual option. And then Adames and Ross will be as good as gone. Sadly, Adames, obviously good as gone. I saw Bellinger, $27.5 million he could opt out with the Cubs. I don't think Bellinger is opting out of $27.5 million with the Cubs. So they could be after a first baseman. You hear the rumors that they could be going after Pete Alonso. But Bellinger, I hope he doesn't opt out. I hope he stays into that. Block the Cubs from doing anything more. Well, another coaching switch with the Milwaukee Brewers. They lost someone down to Craig down in Chicago. We'll get to that coming up here in a little bit. Another pitcher has been thrown out there that the Brewers could be interested in. And we'll talk about that third base spot as well. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Boy, if you're living in Wisconsin, it's a great day to talk about, to start the Hot Stove League. It's cold out. It's windy out. You don't want to go outside. And it's time to start talking Hot Stove League, where you gather around and you start thinking about what our favorite baseball team and maybe our favorite sports team, like my favorite sports team, could be doing here in the off season. And there's going to be a lot of movement. And we got the general managers meetings coming up in the first week of November next week. So a lot of things, a lot of movement going to be happening here in the next month in November. And of course, right before Thanksgiving is where they can give somebody a qualifying offer. I remember last year, right before Thanksgiving, that Friday before Thanksgiving is on a Friday night was when we found out that Brandon Woodruff was no longer going to be part of the team. He ends up testing free agency, nothing out there, and then ends up coming back and signing a 2-year deal when we thought that Brandon Woodruff was as good as gone. All right, Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Get ready to tackle the NFL here in November with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $5. You bet a $5 bet, you get $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. So you play 5 on the Jets tonight. Let's say you're after A-Rod. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook, the app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So maybe the live bets, maybe when you're in a hunch, you check out the latest stats right on the app, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on that play, and then you make a decision. Maybe you like a heavy underdog that gets down early 7-0 to start a game. Maybe you're watching a game and there's a heavy favorite. Maybe there's a heavy favorite that the opponent returns a kick for a touchdown. Well, those odds come down. That's when you can get in on all the jump. You'll get view that live play-by-play and see that, get all the live action before you see it on TV, right on FanDuel.com. You get started again, $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more at FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you, all you everydayers, for joining us. Still hanging in there here in the off season. I know baseball. We got the Hot Stove League, which I really love. I love the Hot Stove League. But there's football out there. Basketball starting up. Obviously, college basketball next week, and we got Locked On has got a bunch of. I mean, every team is covered. And these guys are just so fantastic. We got Locked On MLB. Somebody keeps you updated with that as well. But, if you're a fan of the Bucks or the Badgers or whatever, go to one of the other Locked On. There's Locked Ons for everything you can imagine, all done very, very well. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. My podcast, you get on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. That's where my podcast is. We're the #1 Brewers podcast on the internet because of you, great Brewers fans out there. And, of course, go to our growing YouTube page. Even if you're on the audio platforms, please go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, sign in, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. All the content is free. Hit the likes. Please, whenever you see likes on your audio platforms or video, please hit the like buttons there. That only helps the podcast. Of course, all the content is free. Quintin Berry. The Brewers obviously did not think enough of Quintin Berry to sign him to a multi-year contract. His contract expired today, Thursday, the 31st. And he's going to join the Chicago Cubs as their third base coach. There's not been an announcement yet because today, technically he's still with the Cubs today, or he's still with the Brewers today. It's the 31st. But all reports are he's going to the Cubs and going to be their third base coach. And that's one of the more important roles on a team, is to be the third base coach. You look and you see how many third base coaches eventually become managers. But Quintin Berry, I can't underestimate what he did here. And I talked about Chris Hook yesterday, but Quintin Berry largely instrumental for the Brewers being second in the league in stolen bases, taking that extra base, being smart on the base paths. The Brewers, I said this all season, they were one of the smartest teams in baseball. They did a lot of things right. Taking the extra base, the double steals, certain things like that. Certain strategies on the base paths, all designed by one Quintin Berry, the first base coach. He was a guru on that. He was great at that. You look at some of like Bryce Terang, his high stolen base total. He credited Quintin Berry for helping him. So as I was talking about yesterday, it's about the Jimmies and the Joes. It's about the players. And it is, but in this case, the strategy of running the bases and being smart with your guys and your guys making good decisions. Look how many great decisions the Brewers, how many times the Brewers outthought the other team, outthought defenses with their great base running. Quintin Berry was a large part of it. And there's a reason why Quintin Berry is going to be the third base coach of the Chicago Cubs. Okay. It's because he's highly sought after. Obviously, he got more money with the Cubs. Okay. But that's a promotion for him. That is a promotion that he's not coming back. That is a promotion that he is going to the Cubs to be the third base coach. And who knows? Quintin Berry one day could be a major league manager. But he continues to step up in his career, and good guy, and interviewed him a few times. But it was great to see for him, personally for him. I didn't want to see him go to the Cubs and join Craig down there, but obviously he's going to be a very important spot in that team. The Cubs are probably going to look to run more, do better on the base pass, play smarter. Because when I saw the Cubs this past year, they did a lot of stupid things, just a lot of dumb things on the base pass. Quintin Berry is going to help that. Now, with Berry going to the Cubs, you hope that doesn't hurt the Brewers and that making smart decisions. And we'll see who takes over that role on this team as coordinating the base running and making good decisions. Because this team, as we know with this Brewers team, the margin of error is very small. They have to do all the good things. They have to do all the smart things to win baseball games. That's how they won 93 games, by outthinking, outsmarting, outmanaging other teams, being great on the base pass. Quintin Berry was a large part of it. We don't talk a lot about it, but Berry was a big part of that running game. Second in the league in stolen bases, leading the runs. I hope the Brewers have a replacement for him. Maybe they did offer him a multi-year deal, but obviously Berry, you get offered a third base coaching job, got to take it. Be Craig Counsell's right-hand man down in Chicago. And Pat Murphy, too. Pat Murphy inherited the entire staff from last year. And when a manager inherits a staff, well, they said, well, they told Murphy, hey, we want you to be the manager, but you got to keep the staff. Okay. As Murphy moves along here, okay, he's going to decide what guys he wants on the staff and what guys he doesn't want on the staff. Because just because he coached with these guys under Craig Counsell in Milwaukee doesn't necessarily mean he wants these guys on his staff. So we'll see. Obviously he wants Chris Hook, and so does the organization. We'll see who he brings in as the first base coach. Murphy obviously made a change at hitting coach. Okay. He obviously made a change there. He accepted what they had last year and kept the hitting coach. Okay. But then this past year, he said, well, we along with Matt Arnold, that we need to make a change in our hitting. So we'll see if any other changes. But today is the deadline, and one other name we've just learned again, Quintin Berry going to the Chicago Cubs as the third base coach. We'll see. There's a couple other guys on the staff, including Jim Henderson. We'll find out, if they stay. But as of doing this podcast, no other moves have been made. There's another pitcher whose name has been tied to the Milwaukee Brewers. Not real fan of it. We'll talk about that third base spot a little bit as well before we go. And trading Civale might be a good option for the Brewers. Trading starting pitching, something the Brewers, they did last year. They traded Hauser to the Mets, but we'll talk further about that coming up next. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Going to the Bucks very soon. Go and catch a Bucks game at Fiserv Forum. Go to the Gametime app. Maybe we're going to go to concerts. Great concerts coming to Wisconsin every winter. Go to Gametime. flash deals, exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event, zone deals. Save even more when you choose a section. Let Gametime choose the seats, all in pricing. And of course, all in pricing where you have to toggle that in where you're not going to get surprise fees. Some apps you go to and you'll say, okay, I'm going to pay $30 for the seat. And you go on. The further you go on, then it's like $75 for the seat. You're not going to get that with Gametime. You can get that all in pricing right up front there. And the panoramic views, which I really love, from your seat. You push on where you want to sit, section 110, and it's going to show you right where you're going to sit. Whether it's Fiserv Forum, AmFam Field, concert venues in Wisconsin, all in pricing, seat views, lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the discount. But of the difference. But you got to download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off your first purchase. In terms apply, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. You pay $100 of seats, you get $20 off. But you got to download the Gametime app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed with Gametime. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Down the stretch we come here on Locked On Brewers. Was reading Kurt Hoag's piece in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and he listed a couple of guys who I've been talking about here on the job. The Brewers looking for infielders, and he mentioned Alex Bregman. He was talking about Bregman getting $5 to $7 million on the free agent market. Okay, if that's the case, the Brewers would not be interested in that. 5 to 7 years. The end of that contract could be just disastrous for a franchise like the Milwaukee Brewers. But I was thinking, if the price came down 4 years, 120, that's what I was thinking for Alex Bregman. But it sounds like it might be a little bit more than that. Bregman would be out of their price category. He also mentioned Suarez from Arizona. He's got the $15 million option that Arizona could opt in on. And if they do, the Brewers may be a trade partner for Arizona. How would you think of that? I would love Suarez playing third base. Bregman would be my first option. Suarez playing third base, 33 years old at this point, the one-time Seattle Mariner. What I don't want to do is, and any of those other guys he'd named in his piece, I don't want. Because I want a guy I want to get me a star over at third base. I'm tired of buying these guys and hoping and praying that they outperform their contract. All right, the Brewers have been successful in some of those, and some maybe not so much. Signing a guy and thinking, oh, geez, hopefully he outperforms that deal and makes us look good. We don't need that. The Brewers need better out of that. And Suarez, I got my eye on that right there. So that would be cool. I've seen some reports about the Brewers could be trading Civale. There could be some teams interested in Civale. He gave them a nice, he was traded here, beginning of July. He gave them some nice innings. Okay. Not sure how he fits in the starting rotation or with this team. Might be the odd man out is the only way I'd want to trade Civale. Normally you wouldn't trade a guy, a starting pitcher, because the Brewers, as we know, God knows that they could use all the starting pitching, especially cheap starting pitching. And if he's making $8 million a year, that's good for the Milwaukee Brewers. But it could also be where another team would see that and say, hey, that $8 million price tag, we'll give something up for Civale. So Civale might be the odd man out. And this is a case where the Brewers could get something for Aaron Civale. That's how I think he would be on the trading block. And it sounds like the rumors are he could be one of those guys who's dangled out there. Devin Williams and maybe Aaron Civale, who they got from Tampa right around the 4th of July. So we'll keep tabs on that as well. Well, over the weekend here, we'll see if there's any movement. And Monday is the first day where teams can announce that they've signed a free agent. Okay. Soto's not coming here. Would love it, but obviously, and where is Soto going to play? We'd find a spot for Soto. That's going to do it for Locked On Brewers. Again, thank you, everybody, for making Locked On Brewers your first listen to every day. whether you catch us on Google or Spotify, wherever you down, there's a million apps out there, audio platforms. And, we're on all those because we're the #1 Brewers podcast on the internet. And, of course, please subscribe to our growing YouTube page. Search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That alerts you every time we drop an episode. If you ever got a question or comment, you want to say something, hit me up on Twitter, Chuck Freeman, Freimund. Talk about other sports in Wisconsin as well. I'm a longtime sportscaster here, so I cover the other teams as well. But the Brewers are my favorite team. You could never give up your first love, and my first love has always been the Milwaukee Brewers. First sporting event I ever went to was a Milwaukee Brewers game. The last sporting event I've gone to so far, it's been a Milwaukee Brewers game. Chuck Freeman, hit me up on Twitter. Last name is spelled Freimund. Chuck, Freimund. If you feel comfortable, if you don't want to put the question out there on Twitter, if you want to DM me on Twitter, hey, you want to private message me, I'm good with that as well. And I will certainly get back to everybody who DMs me. Might not be in the, within an hour of getting your DM, depending on when I check it and all that, because I do get a several, but I always want to get back to everybody. Again, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you all a little bit here. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Again, for your second listen, go to Locked On MLB with my guy, Sully. Have a great night, everybody.